Anything? Okay. All right, good. So let me start with some of your points. I'm going to start with Lam. The question of the day. If God is love, why do we have so much violence here and death and destruction and lakes of fire? So obviously we're going to look at that. Let's remember that this passage here, two things. One, everything is symbolic. So let's be very clear about that. There's no literal lake of fire. There's no literal, New Jerusalem, to your point. I'll come back to that. Coming down from heaven like in the alien spaceship, So this is all, metaphors. So that's the first point. Second point, this is very distant cosmic history. So just like Prophet Daniel only saw to a certain point, John now is only seeing up to a certain point. He can see up to the two beasts pretty clearly. We're kind of in that time now, but this is way, so there must be more revelation. It's unclear. This is still very, it remains to a certain degree unclear. Nevertheless, we can get a few ideas from it, but it remains very distant history, especially the millennium, right? Which we'll talk about. Okay, so yes, very good point. And I'm going to quote to your point, Sojourner Truth. Who was she again? Somebody, Sojourner Truth. African-American feminist, I think. Nobody knows who the hell. Was she? All right, everybody, look up Sojourner. This is a huge gap in American history that we all have right now. Sojourner. It's on YouTube how ignorant all of us are right now. Sojourner Truth. African-American abolitionist and activist for African-American civil rights, women rights, alcohol temperance, 1883. So this is, okay. She's in the North, I suppose, if she's an abolitionist. Okay, so everybody knows now who's Sojourner Truth. I'm going to write her name because y'all need to remember this name. Very important part of our history. This is what she had to say about the book of Revelation, about hell, to the point of Lam. I quote, "You seem, talking about people who believe in hell and all this, you seem to be expecting to go to some parlor." Everybody knows what a parlor is? Some living room, right? Away up somewhere. "And when the wicked have been burnt, you're coming back to walk in triumph over their ashes. This is to be your New Jerusalem. Now, I can't see anything so very nice in that. Coming back to such a mess as that will be, a world covered with the ashes of the wicked. Besides, if the Lord comes and burns, as you say he will, I'm not going away. I'm going to stay here and stand in the fire, like Shadrach, Meshach, and Abednego." These are the three friends of Daniel who withstood the furnace. "And Jesus will walk with me through the fire and keep me from harm." Very beautiful quote, right? If you want a picture of it, you can come after class. So she's, right, did you understand what she was saying? Right, she's basically saying, y'all are rejoicing to go up to some nice place up there while everybody here is burning. Well, I'm not going, right? I'm not going. I'm going to stay here and burn, and Jesus is going to walk with me in the fire here, right? Beautiful quote. So I agree with her. There's a problem, which we have, of course, remember, I've mentioned this a lot, especially when we did Genesis, we have the power to overturn divine decrees. We saw this with Adam, we saw this with Abraham, and we ought to use this power here, especially since, and we're going to see this, we're going to be part of the final judgment, I expect, right? The righteous, right, are going to resurrect and be part of the judging process. This is an idea that is not so common. So if we're part of the process of judgment, then we have a say, and we ought to be standing up for our fellow human brothers and friends, right? So that's, I agree with her, and I think we ought to read the book of Revelation much more critically, much more proactively, understanding that we have an active part to play in this cosmic history. We're not just sitting here watching this unfold like it's a big TV show, right? So yeah. Okay, so that's the way I want us to enter the book. Now, before we get to there, let me go back to some of your issues here. So Novoa, millennium, a lot of you asked about that. This is symbolic, right? Millennium is not literal, 1,000 years. It's long time. That's what it alludes to. It's a very long time, but we don't know how long. Now, A lot of you were wondering why Satan got so much respite, right? Satan is locked up. He gets to sit there for 1,000 years. Why isn't he destroyed right away? Right now, anybody remember who Satan was before he became Satan? Then you'll understand. Yeah.
From my understanding, he was
What kind of angel?
archangel.
Archangel. He was very, very close to the heart of God, right? Satan was very much beloved of God before he became Satan. He was almost on par with the angel of the Lord, right? Archangel. This is the highest position in heaven, right? So we have to understand Satan is almost like a son to God, right? He's on par with Jesus. So, I mean, they're often seen on equal footing, right? Fighting for the world. So Satan is, we don't know much about heaven history, right? But we do know that he was certainly much beloved of God. And so the 1,000 years in captivity, right? What do you think they're for? Why isn't he destroyed right away? Yeah,
Kind of like with Cain and Abel.
exactly.
God just sent them away.
God is trying to work here. We don't know how, right? But he's working with him. Remember, the villains are always the most interesting characters, right? And the villains do you have a question?
Yeah, did you talk about it at the final test?
No, I'll talk about it after class. Okay. So let's remember that in the biblical text, we've seen this over and over again, right? The villains are the most interesting characters to God. So we ought to expect, just like Eve, Cain, right? Other characters which we didn't study, we ought to expect that Satan is of interest to God and God might be working with him. We don't have details, right? What's going to happen over these 1,000, but it looks like that, right? So there are some actually church fathers who believe that even Satan will ultimately be saved, right? And we're going to look at that if that's even in the text, right? So just wanted to mention that, right? Okay, Gubin, yes, the violence. We're going to talk about that. See, it's been 5 minutes and my handwriting is illegible now. Control. What did you say about control?
I don't remember.
It's fine. Okay. We'll talk about, you get correctly that the sword is not a sword which draws blood, but which has to do with truth. That's going to come in handy. Akbashev, God, yes, the marriage of the Lamb. Some of you are wondering, what is that? Well, this is simply the wedding that has been talked about in the Hebrew Bible for centuries and millennia between God and Israel, right? That's what it is. Of course, the Lamb now in the Christian context is another figure for God, right? Another metaphor for God. But this is the ultimate final unification between God and his people, right? That's the marriage of the Lamb. Hilton, yes. So the beast, right? For those of you who were confused, who's this beast now popping up, right? It's the beast we studied, the beast of the sea with the little horn, right? The beast that was Rome, which then, became merged with spiritual power and became incredibly dangerous, right? That's the beast. And the false prophet is the beast of the land that we studied later. This is these safe havens, right? These secular countries that fell to this, right? Fell into the trap of the beast of the sea. So these are the two. So they are the ones, right? So do you remember now a little bit, everybody on par who this beast was? We studied at length, right? In Revelation 13. You didn't like the perfect city. What a downer you are. Party pooper. Yes. So I get that. Is there no room for, right, a little bit of confusion and ambiguity and right? And we're gonna see it's there. It's there. You will be pleased to find out that it's not as perfect as you think. So we're getting to that. Davidov, so I mentioned with Satan. Yes, the New Jerusalem coming from heaven. So again, this is metaphorical. It's not going to be an alien ship coming down, right? No matter how precise the descriptions are, right? Remember, the kingdom of heaven is a Jewish concept before it's a Christian concept. It's mentioned in the rabbinic literature. What does it mean, the kingdom of heaven in Judaism? So the word heaven is there, right? Anybody remember? Yeah.
We don't necessarily have like a heaven where you go up there and you're chilling with God. It's more of a lens of your soul and what you did in
Exactly.
this life. the process of reincarnation. kind of.
You're going too far now.
Oh, they want-
You were good though. The first part, yes, is in line with biblical thought, right? Kingdom of heaven simply means God's will on earth, which is what Jesus understood, right? Your will, your kingdom come, your will be done on earth as it is in heaven. That's what it means, kingdom of heaven. The will of God, right? The precepts of God being accomplished on the earth. So heaven is simply a metaphor. Again, don't take anything literally. It's not heaven. It's a metaphor for God's jurisdiction in the earth, right? So when we see the New Jerusalem coming down from heaven, what's this metaphor saying?
I mean, it's debatable. Like some people maintain, because we have both beliefs, as Ariel mentioned, a belief in physical resurrection of the dead, and the belief in like the kingdom of heaven. And for some people, like I don't know, I don't think this is the most popular belief in Judaism. For some people, those are one and the same thing, where it's like the dead will be resurrected and God will be among them on the earth.
Yeah.
Other people maintain a distinction. It's like, no, you have to believe that there's going to be a kingdom of heaven before that, and then resurrection kind of after that. And so it's a point of contention.
And the kingdom of heaven is always on earth in Judaism, isn't it?
I'm sure these sounds like
You would know. Tell us,
I think
please.
so. I'm just thinking about, and I don't know exactly how this relates because I haven't been thinking about it that much. There's like Mashiach ben Yosef and then Mashiach ben Yaakov or ben David.
Yeah.
And the one that's ben Yosef, the first one, is like some people think it's maybe similar to this in terms of like a militaristic-ish sort of vibe, but like the ben David is the more peaceful.
Yeah. So yeah, and the Yeshua ben Yosef, then in the way you say it, so this is Messiah, son of Joseph, resembles this rider on the horse, right?
Right,
In
a
the
little bit, yeah.
militaristic, right? So yeah, a lot of
Like I
emergence.
think how that relates, like
Yeah.
it's not like a theme that
Yeah,
in Judaism, but
Definitely. But yeah, so but in general, you would agree that when the Judaism talks about kingdom of heaven, it means a God's jurisdiction of the earth.
Right.
So it's a more earthly thing. So when Jerusalem is coming down, it's simply saying finally, right, God's will, God's jurisdiction will be established on the earth, right? It's not some alien ship, right? So good. I wanted to be clear about that. And Nicolopoulos, you're worried about the dead. That's good. We'll talk about them. And then I finish with Lam. Okay, let's get in the text. We have some, we have good time. All right. So first of all, I want to remind you who wrote the book of Revelation. I never did talk about that when we did earlier text. I want to say a few words about that. So John, traditionally, we believe that John, the disciple of Jesus, wrote the book of Revelation in his old age. He was at the time, it was a time of, he was at the time exiled on the island of Patmos. Christianity was under attack very heavily by the Roman emperors, Nero first and Domitian. Christians were persecuted, thrown to the lions. It was catastrophic what was happening to Christianity. At the time John is writing this, Paul is dead, Peter is dead, James is dead. All the main apostles of the church are dead. And Christianity seems to be on its last breath, right? And that's why he's given this vision, right? And the vision, remember, is very powerful. The whole book, of course, is very powerful in the sense that it alternates between heaven and earth. And I mentioned this a lot of times already, right? Showing the chaos on earth and the worship in heaven, right? This is a way of showing that God is in total control, right? Even though Christianity seems to be breathing its last, right? All the leaders are crucified, imprisoned, executed. The rest are persecuted. John is, dying on the island. God is still in control, right? Very similar to the vision that Daniel got, also in a moment of end of history. Okay, now, what I'm going to do here today is give you one of the keys to interpreting the book. It's very easy to go all over the place with John, right? But there's actually a structure which John himself has written into the book, which is the structure of the Jewish holidays of the book of Revelation. And this is very, very useful to really get a sense of where the book is going. So I'm going to write down all the Jewish holidays on the board, which are in the book of Revelation. So, first one, Shabbat. Then Passover. Then Shavuot. Passover, I'm going to give the Christian equivalent, right? Easter, Shavuot, Pentecost. Because Christians on these holidays, right? Maybe Jews don't know in the class, but on some of on these precise Jewish holidays, Christians also had some momentous events, right? Shavuot, and then, so these are the springs holidays, right? And then we have the fall holidays. Also 3 of them. Well, Shabbat doesn't count. I'm sorry, she's counting Shabbat here. Shabbat is outside of space and time. Okay. Then we have the fall holidays with Rosh Hashanah, which Christians are less familiar with. And Yom Kippur. And then in the end, Sukkot. Okay. So the book of Revelation seems to indicate that, and this is very important, really get this, that cosmic history follows the sequence of these holidays. In other words, these holidays are not just holidays remembering something in the past, they're holidays marking moments in history, hi guys, right? They're holidays that are marking moments in cosmic history. You follow me? Now, this is brand new idea, which nobody has thought about except John, right? It's very important. So let's be clear about that, right? We celebrate the holidays, both Jews and Christians, as remembrance of some past event. But what we don't realize and what John is doing, he's saying, no, these holidays are markers in cosmic history. And the last 3 holidays, the fall holidays, are still in the future. They're marking moments in cosmic history that are still to take place. You follow? Okay, so make sure you write down all these holidays because they are interpretative keys for the book, right? Okay, so first few holidays, of course, Shabbat, Passover, we know is mentioned in the book of Revelation. It's the for Jews, the liberation out of Egypt, for Christians, the crucifixion of Jesus. And then you have Shavuot or Pentecost, when Shavuot, when the covenant was made between the Hebrews and God at Sinai, Pentecost, when the covenant was made between the church and God, and so forth. But now we get, that's the past. Now we ought to expect 3 more powerful cosmic events, which these holidays are marking, right? So let me tell you a little bit for those who don't know the meaning of these last 3 holidays, because this will give us a clear indication as to what we ought to be expecting, right? So Rosh Hashanah, yes? No, I didn't hear it at all. Thanks. Okay, Rosh Hashanah is the Jewish New Year. This is called the Feast of Trumpets. This is when the shofar is blown. The meaning of this holiday is awaken, right? It's a time when we start to think about judgment, right? We start to prepare for judgment. There are 10 days between Rosh Hashanah and Yom Kippur. Anybody remember the meaning of 10? We've seen it over and over again. 10, 10, 10. Yes?
Minion.
Oh, yes, yes. What else? What else?
Penance.
Penance, yes, very good. Right? 10 is a testing moment, right? So these are 10 days where we are really repenting and we are being tested and we're trying to make it into the book of life, right? So those are the 10 Rosh Hashanah, right? In the book of Revelations, what do you think they correspond to? What moment in time are we dealing with testing, repentance, and so forth? If you've read the book, you should be able to tell me where you have a symbol of trumpets. Yeah. So yes, but in the book of Revelation, you have how many trumpets? 7 trumpets, 3. Right? 7 trumpets, 7 seals, 7, let's see, bowls, right? So these moments of 7, right, where you have the earth undergoing turmoil, right? These are shakeups of the earth. The call is to repent. That's the time of Rosh Hashanah. Okay, that's this. So we are right now in the Rosh Hashanah period. We are right now, if you look at cosmic history and you see the turmoil we are in, the wars, the earthquakes, the tribulations, you know, the confusion. I mean, we could say even before was like that, since the 18th century, or it doesn't matter. We are in a time where the earth is shaken, right? So that's the time where we ought to be thinking, oh, you know, what are we doing? Right? And there is actually an awakening. We are awakening to what's going on. Many people are awakening to the notion of climate change, to the notion of justice, to the notion, right? So this is the time we're in. So we are around the time of Rosh Hashanah. So that's the first fall holiday. Second fall holiday is Yom Kippur. Yom Kippur represents the judgment of the world. So in Judaism, every year, the earth, it is believed that the earth is judged and the earth is renewed by God. And there is a whole service that is done, whole day fasting, where Jews sit in the synagogue the whole day praying, fasting, not just for themselves, but for the whole world, right? Yom Kippur is a cosmic holiday. It's a holiday where it is decided if the earth is destroyed or maintained. And Jews go to the synagogue to pray not only for themselves, but for the world, right? So that's this holiday corresponds to the day of the Lord, to the judgment that we're going to read in Revelation 19, right? So what's interesting now is that the last holiday is not Yom Kippur. What is the last holiday?
Oh,
Now, what does Sukkot celebrate? What's the atmosphere of Sukkot?
you build a sukkah?
Okay, you build a sukkah, which represents the temple, right? So you have a lot of elements in Sukkot, which we will find where in the reading that I gave you. Which chapter? Did you recognize elements of Sukkot in our text? Yes? Exactly. All over, actually. Revelation 21.
13, where it says there were 3 gates on each, 3 on the north, 3 on the south, 3 on the west. On each wall of the sukkah, if it can be 3, there's like a certain measurement that we have.
Exactly.
3 above, and then it has like the 3 strings that make it a wall.
Interesting. Okay, very nice. So, okay, we have that. So Revelation 21 is replete with allusions to the holiday of Sukkot. You have that. You have the water ceremony exemplified through the river flowing from the throne of God. You have the 4 species, right? This they gather a bunch of plants on Sukkot and wave them. You see that in the healing of the trees and of the leaves. You have the gathering of the nations, which is predicted that Sukkot will be a gathering of the nations, not just the Hebrews, right? So this is the key, right? So what is the atmosphere of the end of the book of Revelation? Does it end with death? How does it end? Just looking through the key, and then we'll go into the detail. What does this tell you about the ending here? Kind of ending do we have if it ends with Sukkot? What is the text telling us? First of all, what is the command? What is the predominant emotion of Sukkot?
Happiness.
Joy, right? So it is commanded actually to be joyful on Sukkot. So if you, for the Christians in the room or the agnostics, those, if you don't know what is Sukkot is, if you've been in Queens, you see people making little, yeah, they have little huts outside their houses, kind of little, anybody seen those? With,
Mhm.
it's white, it's like little tents. Anyways, they're supposed to live in tents, right? It's a very joyful holiday. It's a holiday which celebrates the harvest. It's a holiday where everyone comes together, and the sukkah, so this little tent represents the divine presence, right? So if you analyze the holiday, if you want to take some time, you can do that. Maybe that will be a test question. Analyze the holiday and see all the echoes in Revelation 21, right? Okay. So we see the story is not ending with judgment. It's ending with something else. There's a different ending than this, end of the wicked and so forth. So now that we know this, let's go into the details. Let's go into the texts which connect us to the judgment, which is in the future. We're not there yet, which is connected to Yom Kippur, Revelation 19. Okay, so now we're going to go into and look at what is actually happening. So Revelation 19:19. Okay, you have, so first of all, you have this magnificent rider on a white horse. This is obviously Jesus, right? For those of you, those of you who didn't recognize him yet, that's who it is. And then, of course, he arrives on the scene. He's no more the Lamb of God. Now he's the warrior of God. There's a great country song called Revelation, which I suggest you watch, where it talks about this kind of, warrior Jesus. It's a bit of a caricature, but it's funny nevertheless. But here we see then the end of evil. So it begins like this, Revelation 19, verse 19. Then I saw the beast, and take note, underline these, and the kings of the earth. I want you to underline kings of the earth. This is an important moment. The kings of the earth and the armies are gathered together to make war against the rider and the horse. So the rider being Jesus. But the beast is captured and the false prophet, these are the two beasts we studied in Revelation 13. And with they're captured, and then with these signs he had, so the beast had deluded those who had received the mark of the beast and worshipped his image, and the two of them are thrown alive, terrible, into the fiery lake of burning sulfur. We'll talk about this lake in a bit. The rest of them were killed with a sword that came out of the mouth of the rider of the horse. Let's look at this a little bit. So there's a sword. So we get that these two powers are thrown into the lake. And again, this is metaphorical. There's not actual beasts going into lakes. The beasts represent these institutional evil thrown into, we'll talk about what the lake means. But then what happens to the kings? It says how is it? They're killed with a sword that comes out of the mouth of the rider. So all is metaphor. What does it mean, a sword coming out of the mouth? Yeah.
The way they act,
Okay, very good. What were you going to say?
the way they act.
No,
speak.
is a speak. Yes. Anybody else? Okay. So what does it mean that they are killed by the speech of this rider? What is going on here? How can speech kill? What's happening? What does speech do normally in the Hebrew Bible? When we see God speaking,
something.
exactly. So when you see the rider, which represents God or divine figure, speaking, you should think immediately of Genesis 1 when God is speaking life, right? So there's already an ambiguity in the text. I just wanted to give you this first ambiguity. They are killed by life-giving word. This is interesting, right? So word is always life-giving in the Hebrew Bible, especially when it comes out of the mouth of God. It's the emergence of something that is alive. So what's going on that it says they're killed by the life-giving word? How would you interpret that? There's an ambiguity or there's a contradiction. What does it mean? Are you all looking at what is
Picture of a sucker.
the what?
Picture of a sucker.
Gosh, okay. All right, you good? Okay, good. All right. So what does it mean, right? What's this ambiguity? They're killed with a life-giving word. What's going on? What's the text trying to say here? Yes.
They're being transformed.
You could say that, right? That something is you could say they're slain by the life-giving word, right? In Christianity, there's the expression slain by the Spirit, overcome by the Spirit, right? So it's right, there's a strong ambiguity whether they're really destroyed or whether they're simply right, slain in the Spirit, right? You go ahead.
Yeah, I was just gonna say that, because you said that they were deceived by the beast, I guess this word of truth.
Thank you.
Wake up.
Thank you. There's a notion of deception, and then you have the notion of truth. What's happening? What is really being killed? The person or the deception, right? That's what I'm seeing here. There's a clear contrast between deception and word of truth, right? Who's fighting? Is it Jesus and the kings, or is it deception and truth, right? This is the ambiguity, right? Yes.
I mean, I think I agree on that, like, sword of the mouth is probably like positive connotation as well, because like whatever it's destroying, even if it is destroying, it's probably just destroying something bad. But like I'm not sure if I agree with the idea that in Judaism, the word is always a creation, or like it's always life-giving, if it can just as easily be used to destroy, like in the commands of God, or like how we're warned against like false speech or that kind of stuff. Like it's viewed as destructive in those situations.
Yeah, but the notion of the word coming out of the mouth of God, right? There is an immediate allusion to creation. I guess that's what I'm seeing here, right? Or a strong allusion to creation. But therefore, it's ambiguous text, right? For sure. The ambiguity must remain because that's how it's written. But we can try to understand it in a way that's more nuanced, perhaps, than just the slaying and murdering of, kings, right? So I wanted to throw this little doubt, right? Okay, so let's continue with this day of the Lord. Okay, so then in the timeline, Satan captured, bound, right? And we talked about maybe he's, how do you call this when you're like, you got to stay after school and he's in detention, right? It looks like God is putting him in detention or in the corner. Do you have this in the corner? Do you do this corner thing? No, is that French thing to put someone in the corner?
Like in timeout?
Timeout, yes. Right. It's like God puts him in timeout, right? One wonders why he doesn't destroy him here and there. We talked about why, right? God has a connection to Satan, right? God has almost filial connection, right? And then, of course, you have the first resurrection of the saints. So the people You can leave your test and you're good. You can go if you want. I'm sure you did fine. Thanks. All right. no problem.
Let's do, wait.
No, no, we're not done yet. We're not done yet. Okay, so, okay, so then you have the first resurrection. Now, the first resurrection is the people who have been persecuted, the people who have been strong, hopefully all of us, because now we're reading these texts and so let's imagine now you are resurrected among the just, right? I'm hoping we're all there. And now the task is to judge, right? It says literally, thrones are given, I'm on chapter 20, to those who have been given authority to judge, meaning God, this is new, or maybe it is in Judaism and I don't know about it, but it seems here that God is sharing the judgment prerogative with his people. Is that an idea in Judaism? I'm curious. I would, that God judges not alone, but with his people, he will judge the world. I'm curious if that's an idea.
Which people?
His people,
Humanity?
Israel, not the believers. Is there an idea that God and Israel will link up to judge the world?
That
I don't
idea that
think so.
everybody has to be in Israel.
Okay, yes, that's true.
That's why.
Maybe, that's interesting,
In the
yes.
times of the Messiah, it said that the Messiah will pull the Jews by the hair and get them in from all the lands and fly them to Israel.
Okay, yes, the violence of God, yes, I love it, like Jonah. Yes, go
I've
ahead.
heard the idea before that God, even though he might be able to, or some rabbis say he isn't able to do this, others say he is, but he will refuse to do this, like to preserve like human dignity. Like God can't pardon you on behalf of someone else, like on Yom Kippur. If you have to like my rabbi, like Rabbi Babai of like the Baharian congregation, like he gives the same speech every year. He's like, God is gonna forgive you today of like all the sins that you've committed against him, like all the religious violations you've done. But what he can't forgive, like what he has no pardon, is the sins you've committed against other people. And so like please, before this day, that's why there's a tradition of like Jews calling each other up or like texting each other like, hey, forgive me.
Yes, I
Forgive me,
know.
like before Yom Kippur, if I've ever done anything to harm you.
I have students who ask for my forgiveness also. Epstein, remember Epstein? That's when I got renewed respect for Epstein. But okay, so for an idea, but you have your hand up, go ahead.
Well, I've learned from you. That in Judaism, that natural that people who are God, God doesn't make a man, but the person can actually talk back to God.
Exactly.
But it's mind, so God is sort of relational in that sense. Right?
Exactly.
Right? More or less that mind and kind of judge Noah for not doing that.
Very good.
So,
Yeah.
but there's that notion of
Very good, right? So we've learned this. We saw this with Adam, who overturns the divine decree. We saw it with Abraham, right? So if this is true, that we are invited to sit on thrones and judge along the master of the universe, then please let us not forget these stories, that we actually have a say and can override and can overturn. And we ought, at that moment, if this is indeed true, we ought to be standing up for the world and not like Noah. Remember we studied Noah, just sitting there. Oh yeah, go, bring it on. Let's go, right? So do you see the momentous moment? If this is true, then we actually have a part in perhaps even swaying the divine decree, right? We know, and you're cringing, but we know from the prophets that there is a perhaps, always. This is in prophetic literature everywhere. We studied this. When God decrees something, there is always a perhaps. It is never written in stone. I would like to suggest that whatever is going to happen next is not written in stone, that we have the power to overturn it if we open our mouths, right? Yes.
In a sense, not disagree with everything, but like the idea of people judging, because if we did do that, we would have some, form of our own morality, which for everybody would be subjective.
Remember, this is the resurrected saints. We might not even be there. Like it's the martyrs. Like, I don't know. We might be with the rest, right? These are very special people who were martyred, right? and who really paid with their blood, right? And then they're resurrected. They have a completely new concept, right? So what I'm saying is, if one of us happens to be there, please, 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 will you intercede for us? That's all I'm saying. If one of y'all happens to be there, let us not forget these stories, right? Where we, where humans had the courage to intercede and overturn, right? The divine decree. Yes.
Yeah, I didn't cringe at the fact that, what you said, it's more of like a realization, we have the concept of self, development. Like, we have to understand what our purpose here on earth is and how to fulfill it, right? And we also have the idea of asking forgiveness from others, so I don't think that we judge others, we seek forgiveness from others, and we judge ourselves. because-
So here, yes, this is way,
No, even in that.
this is distant history.
I think we have to. Because it's, I know there was a.
Well, here, no, we don't have the right, let me change the terminology. We don't have the right to judge, but we have the right to intercede. That's what I'm saying. No, we have seen over and over again, and this I'm very clear on. We have seen over and over again examples of people of God interceding for humanity. Moses, Abraham, Adam. These are three powerful examples, right, of people interceding on behalf of humanity. So we have that power. It's attested in the scriptures. I'm not inventing this, right? I know it's unusual. I know we are not used to hearing this, right? That we have the power to dialogue and to twist God's arm, right? But it is in the stories we studied. And I'm seeing here, not, of course, we are not judging, but I'm seeing here an opportunity for intercession. That's all I'm saying.
Everybody would have the same prophetical ability to do
The martyrs, right? Those who died for God, whatever religion, right? They're a very special brand of people. We might not end up there, right? We're average, right? But those who died for God have a special place in the kingdom, according to these texts, right? Those people, when they resurrect, will have these positions of power, right? And what I'm saying is, if we have that opportunity, let us use it to intercede, as our forefathers have done, right? Okay, all right. I know this is new. I know. We're not used to this. Even though I trained you, we've been working on these texts. Y'all should be taking this very naturally from what we've been studying, right? Okay, let's continue in this wreckage that we are seeing here. Okay, after this first resurrection, then Satan is released. Here he comes again on the scene. And now this time he's going to deceive again. But this time it's not. So underline, we had the kings of the earth. Now I want you to see in Revelation 20, verse 7, he deceives the nations. Okay, so we had the kings. Note this. Okay, we had the kings of the earth that were deluded. Now we have the nations that are deceived, right? He gathers them. And then fire comes down from heaven, devours them. Okay, so let's look at this. So these are the nations. This is us, guys, right? At the end of the millennium. So apparently, now this is unclear. There's many speculation. Millennium, what does it mean? In Judaism, it's a messianic age, right? When the Messiah is ruling over the world and it's an era of peace. Others speculate that the earth is empty, right? I don't know, right? But it's a long stretch of time, and then Satan is released and the nations are again deceived, right? Okay, now the nations is us. So we need to be careful here. What does it mean, fire from heaven? We talked about this already. Okay, so what could it mean? Let's look at the ambiguity of the text again. What could it mean when it says fire from heaven comes down on the nations who were deceived? So we had the sword out of the mouth in the first story. Now we have fire from heaven. What is it? What could it possibly mean? Yes.
Destruction.
On the one hand, yes. But on the other hand, what does fire from heaven mean in general in the Hebrew Bible? We studied this concept last time. A few weeks ago. Yeah.
You're refining.
Refining?
Yeah.
Yes, you have that notion of judgment, right? Notion of, and judgment means separation from the bad from the, so refinement of a metal, right? You put a metal that is impure in fire, and the fire separates, right? The impurities with the purity. Judgment has the connotation of separation. So it could be that we have a refinement process here instead of a pure destruction. Do you follow the ambiguity? Yes.
I'm just gonna mention, if we're gonna compare it to all the other times that fire came down from heaven, it would be annihilation of evil.
or judgment, right? You have that notion of divine judgment. And remember, the fire metaphor in the Hebrew Bible is used over and over again in prophetic literature to talk about refinement also, like Nicolopoulos was saying. So ambiguity again, right? Okay. And then, of course, the devil now is thrown into the lake of sulfur with the two beasts. And we have to talk about this lake now before we get into the Sukkot, right? The last stage of the thing. So, lake of fire. I stumbled on an internet article, unbelievable. It was so providential, which gave me an explanation of the lake of fire. So, correct me if I'm wrong. In the time of Jesus, there was a place actually, which was an abandoned place where there were little fires starting everywhere. This was the Dead Sea. Anybody familiar? Dead Sea is incredibly salty body of water. You go in, you burn. I mean, if you have a wound, right? If you go in normal, you're okay. But if you have any scratch, it will hurt like hell, right? And no pun intended, right? So this is a lake of very salty, right? Where the Jews would used to put their utensils to purify them, right? So this is the lake of fire that the prophet might be alluding to, right? This is the lake of fire. What does that even mean? But that lake was literally a lake of very extreme salt water, which felt like fire if you had wounds or impurities and so on. And people used to go to, and still do today, go to the Dead Sea to be healed, right? To go through a process of healing or detox and so forth. So now I'm wondering about the two beasts and about the devil. When they're going into a lake of fire and of sulfur, and later on everybody else will, who's not in the book of life, right? So there's a final judgment, right? Where everybody is judged, and then the good are put here, the bad are thrown in. So, okay, so few people might end up in the lake of fire. So I'm curious now, where's the ambiguity here? There is an ambiguity here too, I believe. Lake of fire, what could it mean? And sulfur also, Dead Sea is, there is sulfur element in the Dead Sea. So this is possibly alluding to this. So where's the ambiguity now? When you're thrown in the lake of fire, what could be going on? Exactly, right? It could be a process of purification instead of total destruction. Again, it's ambiguous. You have also the connotation of destruction, but at the same time, you have the connotation of purification. So I'm wondering, is there a possibility that these people who end up there, or these forces, or even the devil himself, who, remember, is not just some random, right? Devil's very close to God. Used to be a son, right? Is there a possibility here of purification, right? That, or some kind of a exit, right? That's the question here. That's the ambiguity. Are you seeing how the text is intentionally ambiguous over and over again? You have expressions that are used that symbolize either destruction or purification, right? 3 times, sword from the mouth, fire from heaven, lake of fire. Anytime you have fire, you have, yeah, destruction, but which is a process of purification, destruction of the evil in order to purify the good, right? So I'm leaving you with that possibility, right? This ambiguity. Any questions or comments so far before we get into,
Maybe
yes?
you have to go through the worst to see the best.
Exactly, right? Some of us are in the lake of fire now. So yeah, right. Some of us already got a taste of it. So that's the idea, right? So are you seeing the ambiguities? Everybody with me? Is this convincing enough? Because I'm testing these ideas on you. You know, you're my guinea pigs.
Purified.
Yeah. Absolutely. That's why I say read the book of Revelation in line of Judaism, not in line of something else. In the context of Hebrew Bible, fire symbolizes purification in the prophetic literature. Why not here? Right? Why all of a sudden now is the destruction? Right? So anything else? Any other? Yeah.
I mean, again, I run into the same kind of objection that I gave when we talk about like the flood of Noah and how we try to separate the same kind of critique I gave to not Ryan Long. What was his actual name? Dr.
Who?
The guy who
Oh, Ryan Kelly.
Kelly.
Yeah.
Kelly, yeah. So same, it was like the distinction between consequence and punishment, the distinction between like the same thing for no like consequence and punishment, distinction being made here between mercy and justice, destruction and refinement. I think that those are like one of the same thing, and that, and especially how they're being addressed in these texts, that both does a lot, like to your credit, to kind of soften the idea of judgment, but also does a lot to harden the idea of mercy, and that you can't just we shouldn't be fully comforted by this vision. There should be elements of it that like, okay, this is going to be
Yeah.
a very difficult, a very painful, and
Yes.
at times seemingly an unjust process.
Absolutely, right? I'm softening it, but the fire hurts, right? So this is, yes, if we have, like you say very nicely, if we ought to bring together, as Jesus taught in the Sermon on the Mount, mercy and justice, we have to continue to see here mercy and justice, even in the book of Revelation, which is a revelation of Jesus, right? So I'm trying to see in each of these moments where there is pure justice, the element, the way out, the exit route, right? The way to somehow turn the thing, right? That mercy might override justice, right? That's kind of, I guess, my interpretative tool. I'm showing how mercy might possibly override justice even here in these texts, right? Okay, now let's go into the Sukkot text, which is the Revelation 21. Now, we have the elements, right, of Sukkot. We have the dwelling of God, which is a strong allusion to Sukkot, which talks about dwelling of God. So Revelation 21, verse 3. Now the dwelling of God is with men, and he will live with them. This is clear allusion to that holiday. And so we have, right, this idea, finally, this is the beautiful happy ending that Watson hated. Right, the New Jerusalem is established, meaning God's reign is established on the earth. You have all this beautiful river of life, you have the trees, and then pops in the middle of this perfection, a little incongruity. I want you to look at chapter 21, verse 24. It's a little, you have a painting and someone tells you, look for the, what is it called when you have, look for the thing that's off. What do you call that? It's like a drawing and you have to see what's wrong. What's wrong with this picture? Huh? Oh, yeah, that too. Or what's wrong with this picture time thing. Okay, we have a perfect picture. God is on the earth. All the people are redeemed. The saints are singing praises. You have the river, the healing. Everybody is happy. And all of a sudden in chapter 21, verse 22, something pops up that we did not expect, honestly. What pops up? Read. Yep, go to 20. Where are your Bibles? How you can do this without a Bible? Verse, go ahead with the King James.
Temple in it, for the Lord God Almighty, Lamb are his temple.
Okay, sorry, 24.
And the nations of those who are saved shall walk in its light, and the kings of the earth bring their glory and honor into it.
Okay. Nobody's realizing what just happened here? I thought the kings of the earth and the nations were destroyed by the sword from the mouth of the rider and by the fire that came down from heaven, right? We saw this just a chapter ago. Nations of the earth zapped, kings of the earth destroyed. What are they doing here? How did they pop up in this story? Are you seeing what I'm seeing? What happened here? What just happened? Okay, tell me what happened. What's going on? I thought they had been killed. We were done with the kings of the earth and the nations.
Is there ever a qualifier though in the prophecy that they're going to be killed, that all of them are going to be killed? Like it could
Says
still be true that like
I don't
the earth will be killed and kings of the earth will come after them. Like they're not saying all of them.
No, but you have to look at the literary. This is a
Maybe,
wait. Let me finish. Yeah, the literary aspect, right? And then I'll get you. The kings of the earth were killed. The nations, it just says kings of the earth. It just says nations. And now all of a sudden, the same concept, the villains pop up again in the middle of the holy city. It's a literary thing, right? It's not nothing's literal, right? You see what I mean? So are you see what, okay, what were you gonna say?
wait, so maybe it wasn't the killing physically of them, it was the killing of the souls, and that their souls were reborn into good people.
That's what I'm trying to say. Thank you. Thank you. You summarized it very well, right? Maybe, just maybe something happened that these people we thought were dead all of a sudden reappear. What happened? What made the difference? Do you see what I'm seeing here? How unusual this is? Yes.
think of it as, that the kings that were killed were the self-appointed kings rather than the kings appointed by God.
But there's no such details here. When the text says the kings, it means the kings, right? Nations,
What kings were there? They were
all of them, all of the kings, all of the, see, remember, the kings and the nations is a symbol for the bad guys. That's the bad guys, the unbelievers. Kings and nations are unbelievers. This is, you should be happy. In the middle of this perfect city, you have all of these, how do you call them? How do I call them? We have a great word in French.
Prophets.
No, the opposite. How do you,
devils.
hooligans. You have all of these hooligans that pop up in the city, right? What just happened? That's, you see what I'm seeing, right? This is a very powerful moment where the bad guys, which we thought were going to be excluded, that's, I'm going to be very clear now. The bad guys, kings, nations. Nations is a symbol for the unbelievers, right? Kings is a symbol for the proud unbelievers, right? These are the bad guys. We thought they were going to be killed and destroyed forever, and only the righteous make it in the city. And what I'm seeing here, what I'm reading here very clearly in the text, is that these bad guys somehow made it. There, that's what I'm seeing. Now, I don't know how, I don't know what was the process, but here they have somehow made it into the holy city. That is what I am seeing. Can anyone not see that? Yes.
There's not that I don't see it, but Revelation 22, I wouldn't say argues against it. Because who would you say the kings are?
Well, the only time we heard about them is a chapter before, where it says the kings gathered against the Lamb and the nations of the earth gathered against the people of God. That's the bad guys. We know them like that. And all of a sudden, the same name, you see what I mean? The author is not saying, oh, the converts. He's not saying the righteous Gentiles. He's using the word that had a very negative connotation a chapter ago, is using the same word here, implying that the wicked somehow made it into the holy city. That's what I'm reading.
I would say because 22:15
Yes.
argues against it, where it says
Yes.
the outsider, dogs and sorcerers, sexually immoral, murderers, and idolaters, and whoever loves
Yeah.
a lie.
I'm not saying the wicked made it wicked, but they made it. Right? Now, I'm not saying they made it all wicked, right? They're continuing to be wicked in the city. I know you want that. I know you want that, but it's right. But what I'm seeing is that those who are wicked somehow made it. That's all. That's all I'm saying. You see what I'm saying? Okay. I know this is hard. This is hard.
So, sticking to that interpretation, that it's like these are self-appointed kings and that becomes. For instance, the kings of Israel were appointed by God, and the kings of outside nations were appointed by people.
Sure.
So these are kings that have declared power on themselves.
Yes.
Commanded, and so they have no real purpose. That's how they got in. So that
Why did they get in?
them being kings means nothing. In terms of comparing yourself, comparing the kings of kings, which is God's appointed king, and the kings of the people, your meaning as a king means nothing. That's
But remember,
what you're in.
maybe your meaning meant nothing, but these kings, they fought against the rider. They fought against God in the one chapter before. And here they are popping up.
But the title means nothing. That's why we refer to them as kings.
No, but do you see, like me, that these kings, even if the people that are called kings, okay, let's read it. The people that are called kings in Revelation 19 were moving against the people of God. Now, the same people that were called kings reappear here in the story, even though they were the mortal enemies, somehow they made it into the city. That's all I'm seeing. I'm not saying anything more. I don't know how they made it, but here they are. Do you see what I'm seeing? You guys should be like sweating with joy right now. I do not see that. Do you realize that there's an ambiguity here, that even the worst wicked might make it? That's what I'm seeing here. That's my conclusion. I know, you're twitching. You're twitching. It's a really hard truth. I know it's not, we haven't been taught this. It feels unfair. But have you listened to the teachings of Jesus and all of the unfairness that is associated with grace? Grace is unfair. We know that. Grace is unfair. You get what you don't deserve. The prodigal son gets a feast. The righteous son gets nothing. It's unfair. Grace is unfair. This is unfair. These guys were about to kill everybody. Why are they here? I don't want them here. Nobody wants them here. They're here. It's a very moving moment. I don't know. Y'all should be in tears. I don't know why y'all are not in tears. Yes.
I agree with that sentiment a lot, and that I feel like I've seen it in other things, like I mentioned last class, like the differing interpretations of like Psalm 37, how it can both be seen as a text for like justice and mercy. But my conclusion here is that I agree that, okay, like mercy seems inherently unjust. And like maybe it needs to be inherently unjust, but then I also agree in other situations, and I think we mentioned it earlier in class, that mercy and justice could be two sides of the same coin, or it could
Yep.
be the same thing. And so how do you reconcile the idea that mercy is inherently unjust, and then also say that mercy and justice are the same thing?
Because these guys still had to go through the lake of fire before popping into the city. So there is still a lake of fire that these guys had to move through.
Then would it make more sense to say that mercy inherently has to seem like it's unjust, but in reality it is just?
Possibly, that's possible. I wouldn't be opposed to that. Jesus seems to imply that mercy overcomes justice, like in scissor, rock, paper, scissor, what is this? Rock, thank you, Sid. Rock, paper, scissors. So if you were doing that with justice and mercy, let me get it right now. Rock would be mercy, scissors would be justice, right? That's at least, so Jesus is, but this is also in the Hebrew tradition, right? This is not new. But he seems to say mercy will overcome. It has to. It has to. If we're only judged according to justice, none of us will make it. None of us will make it. It's very clear. Mercy has to overcome justice, right? That's why these kings are here, and that's why we have a chance, right? Yes, go ahead.
I understood it as they were like,
Well, we ending today.
they were,
Wait, we're not done
they
yet.
were like repenting.
Oh, yeah, we should end soon. Yes, you're right. Thank you.
and cleanse a person. But I didn't find that surprising because that's basically the entire plot of.
Yes,
the book.
that's what we've been doing. Yeah.
But what I find more annoying is the fact that because they are the evil of evil, the worst of the worst, they still get.
Yeah, I know.
grace, and they still get grace. But
Yep.
my problem isn't that, or they were given a second chance at life. Problem is that they were given a second chance to put in the same class, basically.
Yep.
As those who didn't need a second.
That's exactly, you understood exactly the essence of the teachings of Jesus. That's why he was so hated. Read the parable of the prodigal son, read the parable of the talents, read, you know, these parables. It's just like you want to,
And
right?
that's-
Yep.
'cause I looked at that
Yeah, so you know.
and I was like, great, and then I'm like, so then what's the point of being good if you're
Yep.
basically gonna get forgiven?
There's no
and
point.
everything?
You're not good for a point.
So
No
that's my
point.
problem with like
Yeah.
this whole.
Very good. You're the only one who understood if you have a problem. That's perfect. Everyone, we should have both a problem and be profound. Depending on which side you're on, you'll have a problem or you'll be relieved. So it depends, right? So depending which son you are, prodigal or eldest son, right? You will feel relieved or you will feel, this sucks, right? But this is very much in line with the teachings of Jesus, right? He's very much about grace being unfair and overturning, right, the divine decree. So that's what I wanted to kind of, shed some of the light on the ambiguities of the text. It's not as simple, and especially this, in my view, beautiful moment and unfair, yes, beautiful and annoying moment of the kings popping up where they're not supposed to be popping up, right? All right, so, yes.
How does I can't pronounce it.
Sukkot?
Yeah, how does it correlate to that?
Don't worry, we can't pronounce it either.
Sukkot is a holiday in Jewish tradition where they celebrate they build booths that represent the presence of God. And so Sukkot signifies the holiday of the end of times where everyone will be gathered together. So there's text in the prophets which says the nations will be gathered unto Israel. Everybody will be in a big happy banquet and it's going to be the happy end of time, this type of holiday. So that's kind of the atmosphere of the holiday. Yeah. Okay, let me stop the recording.